All right, well, welcome to another episode of Horror of the Worlds, where we talk about horror movies, and how they were influenced and from other movies and some shit that was going on around the world.
Yeah.
I'm Curtis,
I'm Steven.
and today we're talking about like a genre that is like I don't know, how would you describe it? Like we're talking about
I think it's well loved, but not
campgrounds and
Yeah.
cabins, a little bit
I
how
just
they got
feel
their
like
start.
they're not as popular. I mean, the ones that are there are popular, but they're not as abundant as most other films.
As they were, because I felt like
Yeah.
the 80s and even some of the 90s was when campground movies, like a lot of those, summer camp movies were huge.
Yeah.
And now I don't really
They're
recall the
mostly
last.
satire. Things like Addams Family, where they go to a camp versus, it
Everything's
being set
colleges
on
now.
Yeah.
Like you're going off to college or another boarding school, and not even so much a summer camp.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So I guess like one of the things that, because the first movie we're going to be talking about is Friday the 13th. If you haven't guessed, from Von Iron, being dressed the way he is, as
Classy.
perfect. So this movie, Friday the 13th, gosh, I do not remember all the legal lawsuits that has went on with this movie.
I know that they just started actually getting the TV show underway, from what I understood, but it was a huge in the air process.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of fan films came from it too.
Oh yes. Well, I mean that's the thing. Like so.
Hello? Who's that? Oh, hi.
You're all doomed.
Must be in my imagination.
Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once, but that will be enough.
Yeah, so Friday the 13th was directed by Sean Cunningham and written by Victor Miller, and there was a lawsuit on who created what character, was it the writer, was it the director? So it was just a huge fucking bullshit.
Yeah, when the arguments,
which I guess I shouldn't say bullshit, because I mean, you want credit for what you want, I mean.
Yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I would just give the credit to Tom Savini. He did the work.
Well, see, that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
he didn't come up with the character, but he actually made it a life.
What is it, that whole like saying? I'm gonna butcher the saying, but it's like a success has many fathers, but failures only have one.
Yep.
And that's
Ah,
kind of like what
sure.
Friday the 13th was. But I feel like almost everyone has seen this damn movie.
Yeah.
It is like, this is an epitome of campground horror. It is like one of the ones that everyone started mimicking, everyone started copying. Friday the 13th, even though Friday the 13th is a blatant ripoff of other movies.
Yeah.
Like he,
Yeah.
I want to say even Sean Cunningham has even said that, because this movie came out in 1980, so it's an 80s movie. But I've also seen some things where it said 79 and then 81. Seen more say 80, so I'm going to say it's a 1980s movie.
Yeah.
Like one thing, it actually blatantly stole shots from this one other movie called Bay of Blood that was directed by Mario Bava, another early giallo films. But there's honestly, I kind of recommend Bay of Blood is like streaming fucking everywhere. If you're okay with weird whodunits, I honestly like it because it feels like a Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah. I get it.
Because they're like, you find out like, oh, this killer, like, oh, who did this one? Oh, who killed this? And then it's like off to that one. Oh, who killed them? And they're off to this one, and they would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those pesky kids.
Yeah, right.
But there is a kill in Bay of Blood where the whole spear goes through a couple making love. The whole Kevin Bacon, may I have another scene. But that's like one of the things. Like, so you have that stole from there. He's even Sean Cunningham's even blatantly said that they stole from Halloween, because Halloween is also kind of one of the godfathers of, like slashers. You know, the whole slasher genre. I'm not saying that was the first. I'm not saying Halloween was the first slasher, but you know, it's. I want to kind of almost say Friday the 13th was probably the first actual slasher. This is what started slasher movies.
Yeah. Well, it definitely was the most popular in the 80s. I feel like since then we've been trying to rekindle our love for slasher films, but in my opinion, nobody's doing the whole masked assassin thing as well as they did in the 80s. Like, you got so many
serial killer nowadays.
Yeah, right, or a possessed doll, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different kind of slasher. For me, I'm a big fan of masks, and there was something about 80s slashers that just hit just right. Even those cheapo little quick movie B-rated movies, they had a special mask, and it feels like that's how Scream got big too, is because they just had a store mask that they bought and then they made a movie with it.
Which that's kind of one of the things I think. As much as I like and dislike the In the Violent Nature, the movie that just kind of came out here in 2024, I don't want to give a review for that movie. If you like ASMR stuff, you'll love this movie. But he has a mask that is very scary. You know, it's a forest ranger like smoke mask and stuff. Like awesome looking mask, very creepy. Like it's. That mask does it extremely well, which I feel like this movie, if it does kick off sequels, that this could be like the next Jason mask.
All
you know, or
like
as iconic. I should say like Jason or Michael Myers, but it is probably going to be another iconic mask. Which, like you said, you don't really get that nowadays. You don't get mask killers. You know, you get clowns.
Yeah, you get all kinds of shit. Some of them wear masks, but it's usually face paint or possession or some shit like that. You know what I mean? It's not the same. But I feel like Jason's one of definitely the most popular to have worn a mask. So much that you have artists that are trying to remake the mask, and to avoid copyright infringement or anything like that, they have to relabel it the Camp Killer mask.
Yeah, I mean. That is completely true. You know, and that's the crazy thing is that there is no masks that are the same in any of the other Friday movies. Granted, it's kind of weird that we're bringing up the mask, like in Friday the 13th, when it's not really in the first movie.
In the first movie, I feel like it's the one thing that hides you from seeing who actually is the killer.
No, like, do you remember the first Friday the 13th?
Oh, you're right. It's barely fucking in there.
No, it's not. It's not in there at all.
I think I see more of a body than I did a mask. I think I just wanted to see the mask so damn bad.
You don't see a mask until the second one.
God damn.
And that's a bag sack one, or the potato sack one.
Three.
So that was that's one of the things that's great about this movie. The first Friday the 13th is, you know, it has a lot of like the characters are actually pretty smart for what they are. You know, they are this. Honestly, they're smarter than a lot of the current genre. You know, actors. I shouldn't say actors. People that they're playing, characters. Like they're, lack for a better word, they're actually smarter. You know, like I actually enjoy like watching them actually try to figure shit out. This movie is like a plain out American giallo as well. It's a lot of a whodunit. You've seen the perspective through the killer's eyes, and you don't really realize who the killer is until, honestly, I think like the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could kind of catch on to it by the appearance of certain characters and when they appeared. I feel like you can nail it down. But if you're sitting there referencing the camera angle and things like that, it feels like it's painting it to be someone else the whole time. And by the time you get to the end, that's why you're sitting there going, I had a feeling, but it was thrown off by the camera angle.
A lot of red herrings.
Yeah, right.
Which that's what makes this movie actually really great. Is if no one has seen this movie or they haven't seen the movie Scream, they're not gonna. They might love or hate this movie so much. Because honestly, I feel like this movie is old enough where if someone is currently watching or listening to this that is younger and hasn't seen this movie, might be a little bit surprised. So I don't want to really ruin the ending. I don't feel like
you should be surprised, but yeah, you're right. If you watch Scream, they kind of give that shit away, don't they? So,
but that's the thing. Like it's. You got to think of what generation we're in.
Yeah.
You know, like Scream is a little bit removed.
Oh,
Or
you
the
gotta-
first Scream is removed.
It doesn't matter. We're still in a society where you have to remove yourself if you want to avoid spoilers at all costs from social media, because you will find spoilers in everything. They'll make a 20-second video giving away the whole plot.
Yeah. I don't know. That's one of the things I do like about this movie too. Is I guess I should probably do a little bit more history upon the whole like cabin stuff. But first off, I actually do enjoy how this movie breathes and stuff. Like nowadays, like everything's happening. There's always action happening. There's always something happening. Like here, like scenes are like they're giving time for that creep factor to act up. You know, what I mean, you got people playing Monopoly. Like legitimately fucking playing Monopoly for a couple minutes. You know, it's not just like, oh, you roll the dice, oh, you're in jail, and that was the end of the scene. Like it was just, hey, we're playing strip Monopoly.
Yeah, or seeing Kumbaya by the fucking campfire.
But a lot of solid deaths. Like I said, this is possibly one of the first like actual slasher movies. Especially like when you gotta think a lot of the movies that were coming out around this time frame and a little bit before, they were a little bit like cabins. Like people just went to the cabin or whatever. You know, there was a lot more summer camp stuff that was going on. I feel like it was more common of people going to a summer camp compared to nowadays. I don't hear anyone talking about summer camp or any of the people I worked with sending their kids off to summer camp.
Right.
You know,
Well,
that's like in their Girl Scouts or something like that. But
yeah, that's why I've always felt like Friday the 13th was a summertime movie, because that's what I think of when I watch it is, you know, summer camp or getting away for the early part of the heat of the season. And it's the same way Jaws kind of captured that vibe.
yeah, like that's another, because that's a 4th of July movie.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like July already has it set. You know, July 3rd is a Return of the Living Dead.
Return of
Now
the
that I
Living
actually
Dead,
finally remember
yeah.
that, I'm gonna forget it here in a couple of days. And then you have Jaws, and I feel like Friday the 13th should be kind of played almost after that when you want a nice dark, scary movie. But so like around this time frame, you have gosh, you have like Amblin. Or I'm probably actually is like the Steven Spielberg company.
Yeah.
Like his company actually started like in the early 70s, not mid 70s, like when it actually started making movies and stuff. So a lot of these like teenage kid movies were starting to come out. Goonies, I was like an 80s movie. Great Outdoors, late 80s, but also kind of inspired because that's what cabins, Summer Rental, like they're like even Meatballs I think came out in like 79.
Oh really?
Which is like another.
Shit.
So
Right, yeah.
this is the whole time frame when things were, people were going outdoors. They were going out in the forest, and they're no longer camping in tents. Well,
Right. Well, no, I know what you mean.
in movies
Yeah.
and stuff, like they evolved into log cabins.
Yeah.
That's the great thing too is I know Friday the 13th like was not even a movie. It was a ad in a newspaper because of Halloween, because it was like Halloween and stuff, like, oh, well, we got to market Friday the 13th, and they didn't have jack shit written for it yet, which is kind of common for a lot of those movies back then too. Like
sounds
Dolls,
right.
like they were making movies based off of posters. Like, oh, this is a creepy poster, let's make a movie off of it. And that was legitimate, like how those things were made. But this movie made people scared as well to go to camps, like to a lot of the campgrounds. I know for a certain, especially if it was near a lake, any body of water, people are always like, "Oh, Jason's gonna come out.
He's gonna get you."
This was like the whole or however one remembers it, like the kill ma.
Yeah.
That thing was huge. Even if you didn't see the movie, you knew it because I'm pretty sure The Simpsons made fun of it and stuff. It is the whole thing with Jaws. Bruce's theme song. Psycho's ring ring.
Yeah,
ring.
yeah. This definitely had a sound to remember. If I remember correctly, there's like a lake in Minnesota where they actually have a statue of Jason welded to the floor of it, and it scares the shit out of divers every time they practice.
They had to get rid of it, but yes,
giving fucking heart attacks,
dude. That is like the most amazing but fucked up joke, because I don't like going into bodies of water to begin with. I love water, but if I go into a body of water and I see a glimmer of a body, let alone Jason Voorhees, just a body just like kind of floating underwater,
it's gonna skip a beat for a
I
second.
think that might be my last dive. I might die from a heart attack right there. God damn, dude, that would be extremely frightening. But Friday the 13th also started inspiring a lot of other scary cabin movies, which is another great one. Is this is a great cabin movie if you like campy movies. Not because it's a campy movie, but it is very campy.
Yes, it is.
But it is a Sleepaway Camp. Came out in 1980.
Dear Mom and Dad, I've been at a sleepaway camp for almost 3 weeks. And I'm getting very scared.
Welcome to Sleepaway Camp. Someone is watching you.
Hey, Mama, remote.
Someone is waiting for you. Someone wants to scare you to death.
Came out in 1983, directed by Robert Hiltzik.
I felt like it was a very creepy movie. I enjoyed it because it was very different, but I don't know. The whole time, they did a real good job at making you think that these characters are just fucking creeps or weird. And at the same time, you're like, kids. Like, it's whatever. They're just kids kind of thing. But it's like, no, this is fucking weird and perverse in a way.
Oh, yeah. Shit. But yeah, no, Sleepaway Camp, when you start looking at like the actual age of some of the people, the movie becomes creepy.
Every time a fucking a body ended up dead, I was like, good. Like, that motherfucker needed to die. It felt like everybody that needed it got it up in that movie, and then some. So it was a fun slasher in my opinion. Definitely not your typical projection of teenagers getting slashed, though.
Well, that's the thing. I'm saying that creepy. I was like, you got to think these kids are in their mid-teens.
Yeah, actually 13,
and
like 13 and 14, not
it
just
seems
17,
like everyone
18-year-old.
is a freaking child molester.
Yeah,
in the freaking movie. Like, it is that kind of creepy.
Which is why I say, yeah, when somebody turned up dead, you're like, good.
Yeah, you wanted people to die.
Good fucking riddance. You were rooting for the bad guy this movie for sure.
Wow, this is like the synopsis on IMDb is bunks and showers are a mad stabber's beat at a summer camp strictly for teens.
It's more like a brother and a sister, or a brother and cousin. I can't remember what the relation is between the two in this movie. End up getting sent away to a summer camp to get away while their parents get to have time away from the kids. And during
the creepy ass mom.
And during this stay at the new summer camp, bodies end up going missing and ending up dismembered in other areas. I feel like the overall pitch of the movie was pretty simple from the get-go. Like, they wasted no time letting you figure out what the fuck's going to happen.
That's the thing too. Like, this was the 80s was that time frame where like, just make a fucking horror movie. Let's make a movie. Yeah, we don't care about anything.
That's what we're trying to get to.
Kids want blood. People want to see tits. Not this movie. This movie you do not see.
It's actually more male nudity than there is any other nudity up in this fucking film.
They fetishize the male body a whole lot more. You see men in short shorts. Like, you see
guys topless,
men more sexualized, which is great for a lot of
things
people.
like that. It's not. It just wasn't your typical 80s slasher at the time, so it was. Maybe I guess it is in the same.
I guess it is and it isn't, but at the same time, it's cabin or the whole campground.
Good though. I enjoyed the storyline a lot. It was because I felt like it was fucked up.
Honestly, I enjoyed the sequels a whole lot more than this movie.
I don't know why I didn't see the fucking killer coming by the end of this one. I was like, well, I'll be damned. Like, what the fuck?
So, the one thing I thought was like really funny with this movie is Angela, that's played by Felissa Rose, which, I mean, she is extremely well known in a lot of the horror community, especially if you're in she is a mangled dick expert on The Last Drive-In.
Yeah.
And stuff. She's pretty much at every con. I think she's at a con like every weekend.
She is known for this movie. Like, this is the movie that kicked off her popularity.
That's the thing, though, is she only shows up in this movie. Like, in all the sequels, it is Pamela Springsteen. and stuff. So it's like she is automatically like replaced, not because she's a bad actress or any of that stuff. She is fucking phenomenal.
I did not know that.
But it's kind of funny though. Is like everyone, even myself, I get caught up in it where like, oh, it's Sleepaway Camp. You know, you think of Felissa Rose no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, so at the beginning, damn near the beginning of the movie, when they actually go to camp, one of the old cooks ends up trying to rape, like legitimately try to fucking rape.
Yeah.
Angela, like it is
Gets caught red-handed.
Mm-hmm. And when he dies, the camp counselor, the main guy there, tells everyone just to shut up, like just don't
act
tell
like
anyone.
Nothing happened.
And it's like, oh, all right, and everyone gets like a $15 pay bump.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. I was like, wow, $15. Like.
I was like, I thought it was supposed to be $15 an hour, but if it was only $15, that was not enough to keep this shit from me telling everyone. I mean, the way the guy died was, spoiler alert, he gets a big old fucking jug of hot water and oil poured on his body. And
I think he gets like dumped in it at first or something like that. Or
his flesh melting away and shit like that. It was comically portrayed at best, but still fun to watch. And if I walked in on this as a camp counselor or a fucking fellow cook, I'd be like, so I got a cook next to that, and I'm only getting $15. You can eat shit, bud.
It's like even when I was a cook, I freaking hated being around those pots. I could carry this pot of water with one hand, but you know what? No, that's fucking hot.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was kind of funny. It's like, just shut up. We won't tell anyone. You guys get paid more money, and cooks don't get paid enough as it is. So I probably would have shut up about that death and not made a big...
Maybe, yeah.
But this movie, it's really a sign of the times, because even another random fucking part of the movie is there's a water balloon fight on the fucking roof of one of the cabins.
Oh yeah, no big deal.
That's like,
OSHA would have shat its pants.
oh man, like I could just like imagine, like that's the thing, like the danger there. Like I don't know if it's just because of how old I've gotten, where it's like, fucking, I have to just slip and I fucking break a leg. I'm getting
on this rusty ass looking roof, like there was nothing. It was like they let kids run that whole camp.
Yeah, it's the adults and the
like
older
three
kids
fucking adults. Yeah,
they weren't doing jack shit. But that's also another great thing about this movie, is that it did take a lot from Friday the 13th on the whodunit. That I don't want to say giallo because there's no gloves. That's usually the biggest sign of a giallo inspiration is black gloves. But it is. You get the killer's perspective, so you don't know who it is.
Yeah, this one, in my opinion, did a lot better at the killer's perspective. If you're watching it, it feels like going back on the footage, you might have been able to guess who, or at least get a general idea of what group might have been the killer. You know, somebody in this group was the killer versus this person or this person in particular. But I felt like they did a good job on the scene shots and stuff like that, kind of jumping around with it, not showing anything without giving it away.
And like there's honestly some pretty good acting. All right, when I say good acting, I don't necessarily mean like good acting, but there is a actress by Karen Fields. She plays that part, like she plays a fucking bitch so goddamn well. Like you end up hating her, and it's like she pulled that off incredibly well, like in my opinion. Like if you want to see a kid die, I mean, like, they're doing a really good fucking job at it in a movie. Okay,
in a movie, yeah, right.
Take that out of context. I don't really care. But no, this movie's a fucking pretty solid.
I feel like it's almost one of those you have to have at least seen it once kind of movies. Yes. As far as being a horror fan goes. It's
like if you're not watching or listening to us, more than likely you're on YouTube following us, and retweeting us and telling your friends about how basic we are, So, but more than likely you have either seen Sleepaway Camp or need to see Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen Felissa Rose in any movie. This is where she got her start. I think she was only like 13 or 14 when she got this movie.
13, yeah.
Like really, really young. Also, another stupid thing too. Like, it has nothing to do with this movie. It has nothing to do with the inspiration. But I freaking love how bad the cop's mustache was at the very end. I don't know. If you know it is extremely noticeable, but it's just as fake as a mustache could be. Like, dude, just would have waited like a week and he would have had a better mustache than that fucking fake thing. This next movie was possibly shot around the same time, because Friday the 13th was being filmed in 1979. We know that one more so for certain, that it was shot and filmed in 1979. This next movie, it was either shot or started filming in 1979, 78, 81. It's kind of actually hard to pinpoint the date this movie was actually being filmed.
With the attire that they're wearing and things like that.
And that's the thing, the attire is even kind of ageless in a way. Like, it definitely dates it, but it's kind of ageless. Like, it doesn't really say like, oh, this is a 50s movie, or very well could have been a 50s movie if you didn't have the Delta. And if you guys know, just from that little tidbit, we are talking about the Evil Dead, or Evil Dead.
No, it was the woods themselves. They're alive, Ashley.
I fear that the only way to stop those possessed by the spirits of the book is through the act of bodily dismemberment.
With Bruce Campbell, directed by Sam Raimi.
I feel like his attire in that movie, Bruce Campbell's in particular, he reminded me of the dad from Amityville Horror.
Yes, I can definitely see that.
So that's why I would have thought late 70s, sure. But there's still that decade change where, you still have leftovers from the 70s fading into the 80s, and then you got clearly 80s things.
Well, that's like one of the things, too, is like as generations or as decades go, very, very rarely do people ever like, oh, we're in the 80s. Let's get rid of all of our 70s shit and start getting 80s things. I mean, that's one of the biggest drawbacks with that 70s show.
Like
that 70s show had that 70s era furniture. And
they nailed the 90s really well, though. I don't know. There was a change in the 90s where you saw them get rid of all their black and white and went pastel pink and blue.
I love
but
Saved by the Bell colors.
They kept the big hair, but you're right. In the 70s and 80s,
there was that line that Joe Bob Briggs has said, like, they teased the hair so bad it was bullied. I just freaking love that line so much. Not the line in Evil Dead, but he does it again, I think, in Search of Darkness. But it's so you kind of have that where that's why I say it feels timeless, because it is in a cabin. I think I can't remember exactly why they went up there in the first movie.
The same reason they go in any movie. It's somebody they know's cabin. It was supposed to be somebody in the group, which is the reference that we have with another movie. They kind of vaguely said who it was in the group, and I want to say it was the jock guy it was his cousin's cabin or some shit like that. Overall, it wasn't a close family member where they're like, oh, this is weird. It was distant. They probably just keep weird shit over here all the time. No big deal. Don't even think about it.
The synopsis is a mouthful. So, I mean, this movie, the influences are a little bit almost everywhere, which I'll talk about here in just a second after I spit out this mouthful of a... Yes. So, Ash Williams, Bruce Campbell, his girlfriend, and 3 pals hike into the woods to... All right, see, that's the thing I'm already having an issue with. They don't really hike into the woods.
No, they take that delta.
The delta.
The sketchy-ass delta through the mountainside.
Like, they just had a tune-up, I mean...
Yep. The only thing that worked was the horn.
Yes. We weren't honking at you. But his girlfriend and 3 pals hike into the woods to a cabin for a fun night away. There they find an old book, the Necronomicon, whose text reawakens the dead when it's read aloud. The friends inadvertently release a flood of evil and must fight for their lives and become one of the evil dead. Ash watches his friends become possessed and must make a difficult decision before daybreak to save his own life in the first of Sam Raimi's trilogy.
I felt like it was easily one of the best. It stands the test of time, which is what was weird to me. I was expecting, like, sure, I saw a lot growing up, and I had to recently watch it because it'd been a few years since I'd seen it. But even rewatching it, I'm like, it just hits a note that most movies don't hit these days. Either you're trying to take yourself too seriously, and you're not noticing how comical you're being, or
which they noticed on because they were kind of somewhat taking themselves seriously in this movie until they did Evil Dead 2, where it's like, oh
the
wait,
googly eyes and shit like that.
This is what
on
make this movie so great.
Yeah.
Let's just instead of cranking it to 10, we're cranking it to fucking 20.
Yeah.
And stuff. So,
I feel like they did a great job with it. I mean, it seemed like it was a low budget film, but it
Extremely
still
low budget.
hit all the right notes with a horror movie. The body gore, the weird shit going on, the demonic possession, the poor girl in the thorns in the field. All of that shit, it was slightly disturbing, yet portrayed in a comical light almost.
And that's a great thing about this movie is like it set off cabin movies. It made the cabin a character. It made the location a character itself. You know, it wasn't just like the book that was possessed. So, I mean, you have the influences from H.P. Lovecraft right there from calling the book the Necronomicon. Which is a straight rip-off, which I think they had to rename it in some other rendition. Which I think that's why it's like Stan versus Evil or whatever. Like I think it's like kind of the same thing. But no, so I think another thing why this movie did so well is none of them, Sam Raimi, Ted Raimi, Bruce Campbell, they're not horror fans. Not even at this time. They were not into horror. They were into comedy. They liked the Three Stooges. They referred to people as they didn't refer to people as fake shimps, but they had fake shimps in this movie. I don't know if you know what that is, like what that is or whatever, but I guess a quick synopsis of what a fake shimp is. Like, so if you're shooting someone from behind and you don't have that actor anymore, they put in a stand-in and to play that part or whatever. It's a fake shimp. They did that on the Three Stooges when Shimp wasn't there. I think I can't remember if he died or if contract ran out or something like that. But they had people where it's just like you didn't see his face. It was a fake Shimp. Yeah. Like I think there were like almost like 15 people credited as fake Shimps, like in this movie. But yeah, but they weren't horror fans. So I want to say like Ted, like he ended up going to like a lot of drive-in theaters and just seeing what people were scared of, because they've already made movies before. They wanted to know what worked, and that's the thing. He studied. Like he is a genius. Like
they were slapping a satanic panic at that time.
Yeah, you have that. You have like that. I felt comfortable saying that he's a fucking genius, because like he actually did his homework. He actually studied and saw what people were actually scared of, what were making people jump, what were getting people to the edge of their seats, like when it comes to all those movies. I doubt that these movies were his influences, because I can't remember what movies he said, because it's been a while since I read Bruce Campbell's book. But you have a house, the Nobuhiko Obayashi's 77.
That was a comedy horror for sure.
That comedy horror.
Yeah.
Like hopefully you're thinking of the right one. I'm thinking of. Like,
it's the cover is a blue background with a girl's head on it.
No, this one is the Orange Cat.
Oh,
house,
okay.
The Japanese one, where
this one was a Japanese one too.
The other house that is actually from Sean Cunningham as well is the one with the house with the hand ringing the doorbell, and the tagline's like "Ding dong, you're dead" or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you have that house, which that one is of course Japanese. It has more spirits, but it's a haunted house that is possessed by the grandmother and all that.
Oh yeah, no. All right.
So yeah, yes.
That's the one I'm used to seeing right there.
All right, so yeah, then you have definitely seen that one where that house was haunted. The things were haunted in there. You had a freaking piano that was freaking eating little girls and all that stuff.
It's so weird, man.
So, like, I feel like if Sam or any of them hasn't seen House, you know, it's had to have leaked through somehow. Same with Amityville Horror. Came out in '79, around the same time this movie was being shot, maybe filmed,
right,
and stuff. So I mean, that's a haunted, possessed house that was built on a graveyard. I can't remember if that movie was Indian graveyard or not, but so I mean, you have a haunted house there.
I'd be surprised if they hadn't seen House. Like, don't get me wrong, you said they weren't horror fans, but they are comedy fans, and a comedy horror would definitely strike my interest. But I mean, sometimes those comedy horrors can be a stretch.
I was almost kind of thinking possibly Haunted House that came out in 1921. 1921, which I want to say is Buster Keaton, which the house wasn't really haunted. It was, I think the house actually kind of was haunted, but you had a gang going after Buster Keaton and stuff, and the house is just making fools of them. I want to say it's in one of our trailer. Is like when the ghost grabs Buster Keaton around on the chair. That's from the Haunted House. But that's a fucking banger of a movie too. That's a lot of fun. So this movie was like, I think it made it so big. It was, I think I brought up to you before. It's not a lightning strikes twice. It was, a plane crashed and on someone and lightning struck on the same guy at the same fucking time.
Yeah.
This movie cannot be remade, and as good as this one was. Not a movie of 40 years now being this fucking great is hard. You have other great campground movies, that are kind of better than Jason.
Things that old get forgotten for a while, and it feels like this is one of the ones that our younger generation is going to pick up as well. Going, no, really, you need to watch it, especially the second one. I feel like the second one's one of the ones that's going to get a lot of attention because of how clear they made it that they weren't serious.
Yeah, that's almost oddly enough, I always forget which one he actually gets his chainsaw hand. If it was Evil Dead 1 or Evil Dead 2. It's one of those things that my mind just blanks on which one was which.
I feel like it's 2 because for some reason I keep saying that it's Army of Darkness that he ends up getting it, but that's when he gets his boomstick, right?
No, technically I think he has it in the first one because that's when he actually, I guess when he actually starts calling it a boomstick.
Yeah. He gets an S-Smart special.
The Remington, oh man, I wish I could remember that damn line. But yeah, so the trilogy that we're talking about is Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. All right, quick question, little thing, like what was your first one that you saw of the 3? Because usually some people
Army of Darkness was definitely the first one that I saw, and then I went back and I saw the other 2, and I want to say that I didn't actually fully watch 2 until Ash versus the Evil Dead came out, and I think it's because they were having just
the other references.
Yeah, they were just putting everything out there at once, going, "Oh, well, this is coming out. You need to watch what it used to be," and all that stuff. But I know I had seen the first one, and then I just thought Army of Darkness was the second part. I didn't know that there was an Evil Dead 2 for some fucking reason, but I was stoked when I went back and watched it and enjoyed the shit out of it.
Like I was kind of the same way. Army of Darkness was my first one, and I went back to watch Evil Dead. Hated it because I was expecting comedy. I was expecting that. And then I saw Evil Dead 2. I'm like, oh, all right, Evil Dead 2 is where it's at. Which, like, that's the thing. Like, watch all 3 of them if you have time. At least, because, all right, so Evil Dead, the first one, is more scary. It is more just...
I feel like that's still not... I mean, it's more towards a scary vibe, but it's still not so well done that you're terrified by it.
It's definitely scary. Then Evil Dead 2.
It's scary. Yeah, Evil Dead 2 is clearly like slapstick comedy all the way. The comparison of this is almost as if you're watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 with Chop Top Mosley in it. You know what I mean? Like, there's a huge difference in the way it's shot and how serious it's being taken versus or trying to be taken. So
no, that's I feel like a great comparison. I mean, and I think you have both the directors, Toby Hoppier and Sam Raimi, both saying the same thing. As like, oh, this is what the first one was supposed to be if we had a budget.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm glad you guys didn't have a budget at first.
Right.
Honestly, I mean, first Texas Chainsaw is fucking amazing. Like, grittiness. Watch one of our Ed Gein episodes if you want to hear us talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
But this movie also created the shaky cam. A plank of wood, like a camera screwed to a plank of wood with rope, and they're just running through the fucking forest, creating the shaky cam. Something so cheap, so effective.
Yeah.
Like, but I think it was also kind of like lost for a little bit too. Like, we're only like diehard horror fans around the time knew about it.
Yeah, now
when it came out.
Now it can't. You're not a true fan unless you know at least of part of the series. Yeah.
Well, especially, I mean, when you have Evil Dead Rise that came out. All right, and this is another big thing. Like, we're kind of done with Evil Dead, but is the Evil Dead, the 2013 Evil Dead, compared to
they nailed it. I feel like they fucking killed that.
Evil Dead Rise. People, it feels like I've been seeing a lot of people like either hate one and love the other, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, are you the remake sequel Evil Dead or Evil Dead Rise?
I like the 2013 more. Now I have to rewatch Evil Dead Rise to get a full opinion about it. Now that I've seen it once, I can go into it kind of knowing what to expect, look for other references, and try to catch the reimagining. Because when I watched it, I thought it was going to be the next installment of the first remake.
Right,
but it ended up being something completely different. I felt like the first remake did exactly what they were trying to do in the first movie that they ever made, with a proper budget, scary as fuck, good gore, screenshots and all that shit. They captured a vibe the whole time. And being somebody in the Northwest, that rainy day when you're camping and expecting it to be nice, they nailed that shit.
So I personally like Rise more than the remake, but I completely understand and agree that I do love the gore of the 2013's Evil Dead. The only reason I don't, this is for me personally when it comes to, there's a difference between kills, not so much in Evil Dead, but in general the kills that I enjoy in horror movies is. I rather feel sympathy or empathy for the character and watch them die.
I see.
Who knows? I might be a psychopath.
You wanted to tug at the heartstrings a little bit.
Compared to, I don't want to hate the character and want to see them die. Or
I don't know.
Like in the 2013 Evil Dead, I wanted them to die. I didn't care if they died. I loved how they died and how gruesome and how brutal and violent it was.
I felt for the nurse one when she was sawing through her face with that piece of fucking glass. I was like, God. Damn,
I didn't care. I didn't care one goddamn bit about them. But I cared about the Rise. I don't know if it's just because there were like kids involved, or just like the playful homage, because it was like a blend of the 2013 and Evil Dead 2. Like, because it wasn't a dead serious movie, but it wasn't slapstick. Like, it was more of a love letter to the first Evil Dead, with love letters from Evil Dead 2.
You know, maybe that's the thing, though. I mean, I'm used to going out Airbnbs or camping with my friends, so that one kind of hit with me a little bit harder than a bunch of motherfuckers living in a goddamn apartment together, and I try to stay away from them at all costs. Fuck them. Like, I'm going to keep my door locked, and your family can suffer over there. I'm going to suffer right here.
Which, that was one of the things that people had a big issue with Evil Dead Rise. Is like, why are they just staying in their apartment? How come they just don't venture out? I'm like, motherfucker, if there are creepy things out there, I am going to stay secluded.
Lock this shit down.
I could go experiment, see if there's other deadites. No, I'm going to stay the fuck right here and end up killing myself eventually.
Whatever, yeah. Waiting it out, something, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's evil. Like, that's a crazy thing is, like, the TV series, the movies, the spin-offs, if you could call it, like 13 remake sequel, Rise, the next movies that are coming out. I can't think of another series that has varied that much. That's as beloved as Evil Dead, which
you're absolutely right.
says volumes about like the Raimis and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's very hard for someone to do something that amazing. You know, but that movie inspired so much, where it created tropes, but it also was pretty much another movie that almost blatantly ripped it off. Is Cabin in the Woods that came out in 2011.
Everybody ready? Get the show on the road!
Doesn't even show up on the GPS. It's unworthy of global positioning.
That's the whole point. Get off the grid, right?
Hello? I'm thinking this thing doesn't take credit cards.
Sign says closed.
We're looking for, what's it called?
Tillerman Road.
And to get you there, getting back. That's your concern.
Oh, this is awesome.
A direct love letter to the Evil Dead. Like, there's everything to the storyline. I mean, there's a little bit of a plot change in the storyline, but we're not sure, but it's somebody in the group's family member's cabin. We're just going to go out to it, you know?
Directed by Drew Goddard. I want to say it's directed and written by him and Joss. I always want to say Josh. I know it's not Josh. I don't know why my mouth can't make that Josh, like the Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
But like he I want to say both of them were involved with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and stuff. But
yeah, Joss Whedon definitely was.
This is all right. Let me.
So perfect. I felt like this one. It nailed the vibe, but I felt like Evil Dead had to walk so this one could run. I mean, this one wouldn't have had the same traction if you weren't getting all the Evil Dead references. Because that's why I was loving it. I'm like, why are you doing that, stupid? References. Like, yeah, right.
Which I think that's like one of the things is I almost kind of want to take Evil Dead ran so this movie could walk.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
Because this movie is great, but
I feel like this one just had awesome funding. The fact that you had different kinds of monsters in here, you had to mess with animatronics, you had to mess with all kinds of practical effects as well as CGI effects in order to make this a killer of a movie. And it starts off with you thinking it's just going to be zombies the whole time.
It felt like it was just going to be a boring cabin movie, and sometimes you end up hating it. The synopsis of the movie is when 5 college friends, actors' names here, arrive at a remote forest cabin for a little vacation. Little do they expect the horrors that await them. One by one, the youth fall victim to backwoods zombies. But there is another factor at play. 2 scientists are manipulating the ghoulish goings on, but even as a body count rises, there is yet more work than meets the eye.
And this one, as a workplace employee, you kind of feel the note with this, how in there's a lot of comedy, and the most comedic parts I find of it is when you're watching them manipulate the situations in each of these scenes that they point out, and it's like they're blaming this on the technicians, they're blaming this on the cleanup crew, like they're just pointing the blame. And as somebody that's a part of
it's never their fault.
It's never their fucking fault.
It's always someone else's
fault. It's the fumble by management, and that is what this movie is like.
I think that's the thing. Like this movie plays so much on the stereotypes and things that happen in movies and so I think that's even what they touched upon was shit happening on the higher ups, falling through.
Yeah, but they're gonna force that blame on everything. Shit is gonna roll downhill.
But I mean, some of the stereotypes here that I actually enjoyed was there's a two-way mirror in the cabin stuff. So you had the guy watching the girl undress and like, oh yeah, we're finally gonna get some breastage here.
Yeah,
but the guy feels guilty and stuff and bangs on the window and is like, hey, there's a two-way mirror. And the roles switch. Like, so she's in the where she could look into the other mirror and no, he's starting to undress.
Full knowing.
So
Yeah.
I was like, I give a big applause for that one. Like, all right, we're going to switch the roles around here. There's another, one of the things this movie, I think, possibly wouldn't be as big as it is right now, and probably would have been blacklisted if the different director actually got the job, and it would have been Victor Silva.
Oh yeah,
and stuff. The one that he's a director that did Jeepers Creepers, which I don't really give a fuck about the person. I do hate the director.
Right.
But Jeepers Creepers is a fucking great movie.
Yeah,
like it is a solid creepy fucking movie.
The first one in particular.
Yes.
Yeah.
The most recent one, I never really say this about movies, but don't watch, which is the 4th one.
I just feel like, no.
But look up the stuff that he did. Like, he is I don't really give a shit, like, on our popularity. He's a piece of shit that doesn't fucking deserve to be free.
No, fuck that asshole.
Yeah. Look up what he did, because that's not what we're about. Like,
I do like to separate the art from the artist. So that being said, fantastic fucking movie. Fuck that dude right in the face, but his movies are great.
Hopefully he is getting fucked in the face.
Unwillingly. Piece of shit.
All right. So, again, this movie came out like in 2011. So this is, I don't want to say directly like on the heels of the whole Japanese remake era that was coming off of like the late 90s, early to mid 2000s.
Yeah. They did kind of hint at that joke.
They joked around. They joked
like,
on.
How fucking Japanese came through with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's a glitch. You know, because they brought it up. Like, oh, yeah, America always does things better. Like, we're number one. And stuff. Oh, but there was that time in 98. I was like, no, that was just a glitch.
We don't talk about 98.
Yeah. So they acknowledge it is extremely well written. It's
You'll recognize more faces than names in this movie. There are 2 names in there that I know you'd recognize right off the bat. One of them's Chris Hemsworth, and I feel like it's his name that drew some of the people in because he had only done 1 Marvel appearance at this time, I think.
I don't know.
I don't even think he was a part of the Marvel universe when this first came out. I just remember just hearing about him when I saw this movie. So it's not like he wasn't everywhere yet. Yeah, he was. This is before he bulked the fuck up for sure.
Like this was before,
Maybe it was just before Thor. I think I might have watched this after the fact. But I'm a big fan of stoner comedies. And anyone where the stoner ends up getting any kind of one-up, you got my attention.
The telescopic mug bong that he has.
Yeah.
Which supposedly costs like $8,000 or $5,000 to make, which...
And is used as a murder weapon. Any bong you could use as a murder weapon.
Well, I mean...
And then drink your coffee out of.
I guess, yeah, you got that. But this movie... All right, I'm speaking from my own personal opinion. At least like when this movie came out, growing up in Southern California. Back in a time when, you either loved movies or you hated movies, and you were... It's either it was this way or no way. Mm-hmm. Like it's that whole like my way or the highway. Fucking Limp Bizkit. Like that was kind of like the era that I grew up in, and the feelings. So this movie was supposed to be, I want to say it was marketed wrong, at least there, because it was supposed to be a horror movie. So when I first watched it, I was expecting a horror movie, not a Shaun of the Dead type movie.
It's funny. So when I watched it, I had already watched things like The Bride of Chucky and Freddy vs. Jason and shit like that. So, I mean, they are years apart in when they released and shit. But that's what I was expecting when I hopped into this, because during a time of remakes and reimaginings, it feels like you're going to go for more of a violent comedy versus an actual horror story. But I was also up here torrenting my movies and shit like that at the time.
LimeWire was a big thing.
Yep. So it was one of those, oh yeah, I think I heard of that, as you take a big old rip out of your bong and then download the movie. So this was, to me, a stoner comedy. This, as well as Shrooms, things like that, kind of just
which
blipped up here and there.
I think that's like one of the things is people, like the early 2000s and the 2010s that are finally starting to kind of get some love, finally, which they fucking deserve. Like people say, like, oh, the 2010s was a horrible time frame. When you kind of consider what movies came out during this decade, or like this like 5-year period for the most part, it's something that we're possibly never going to get again. Because when you look at it, you have Wes Craven making My Soul to Take and Scream 4. Or just put a note in Scream 4. You have Dario Argento making Dracula 3D. You have John Carpenter's The Ward. Ridley Scott's Prometheus came out around this time. Tim Burton's Dark Shadows came out around this time. Don Coscarelli's John Dies at the End. Rob Zombie's Lords of Salem came out around this time. But so I mean, these are some of these big, well-known directors putting out kind of like stinkers for the most part. I think The Ward was John Carpenter's.
They were
Fuck You,
overlooked
and
at
like
least,
done.
yeah.
But you have Scream 4 coming around this time. The Friday the 13th remake came out, I think, around this time as well. I think, 2009. Yeah. Love it or hate it. This is for studies for the time. You have the Nightmare on Elm Street movie came out, the remake around this time. And you've had Rob Zombie's Halloween movies come out around this time.
With all those big names coming out, you're going to overlook this one.
But look at that. Like, when was the last time you get Ghostface, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, all at the same time?
Yeah.
Honestly, like it was, we're not going to get that again. I think there's even a Leatherface movie that came out around this time too.
The rekindling of Evil Dead almost.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there was Chucky movies. So it was Hollywood just trying to get the names out there, trying to make a remake, trying to get their money. They got their money, but at the same time, look at the bigger picture. That's an awesome fucking time frame to be in.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what people feel like of the remakes of the early 2000s with the remakes that America is doing.
Right. Another thing I enjoyed about this movie is it painted the idea that maybe the government's behind every single one of these universes, with having a werewolf inside of a cage as well as a killer doll, a killer ballerina. You know what I mean? It was the Kmart version of Pinhead, only he had the saws in his face. It looked like a 13th Ghost Pinhead kind of thing going on. He was holding a sphere instead of a fucking box. Like, It was kind of just the same way Bride of Chucky started out. You're in that little cage for the police stuff, and you got Freddy hand, yeah, and then you got Jason's mask, and they're just kind of making
it in the same universe.
Yeah, and it felt like they did a thing with this, and I was just sitting there like, man, why didn't they try to get something else in there? And then
which they got a whole
they fit a lot in there, and my favorite is the mer people. So
fucking maintenance. No, it wasn't maintenance. It was like you never want more people.
Yeah, it was maintenance is unoriginal. That's why they're in maintenance.
They always win.
They chose the redneck zombies.
Like that's if you're down for a good comedy that makes fun of all the tropes, makes fun of
between workplace relations and shitty movies, this one makes fun of it all.
And I think that's one of the things. Like this movie is like from beginning to end has references to all horror history. Yeah. You know, like it is made fun of, you know, and what have you. But it is go into it knowing that it is going to be more like Shaun of the Dead than anything else, but it actually has some scares in it.
Yeah,
like there are. Kind of a scary movie. Even it has.
They didn't necessarily break the mold on. Yeah, it did. They didn't necessarily break the mold on horror tropes, but they did bend some of the rules. You know what I mean? You think that motherfucker's not going to make it far, but the motherfucker makes it farther than you think. And
yeah,
I don't know. There was just some things I appreciated it, but overall, it still doesn't hold a light to the original Evil Dead.
No. Yeah.
But damn good effort for a movie that isn't under the Evil Dead franchise. They fucking nailed it, man.
This movie doesn't. I think this movie doesn't get any love. Kind of almost the same reason of like Victor Silva. Not because of the same reason, but because of the hate. Because I know a lot of people don't like Joss Whedon.
Yeah. Well, so the worst I've heard, the worst I've heard about him is he's just a piece of shit human being, and he portrays people in a horrible light and things like that. But he's no Weinstein, from what I understand, which is why he's still working in the Marvel universe.
Well,
so
I don't.
But I can't say that for sure.
Yeah,
but
that's
still,
like
separating the art from the artist, he's put out some good shit. Firefly was a fantastic show. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, regardless of how you feel about it, went on for 15 fucking seasons. So
was it that many?
I want to say it was that many. It was close. I want to say maybe it was more like 13, 10 to 13 at least.
More than one.
And then it's been rekindled in several different lights. So
movies and
yeah, you got movies. They're talking about bringing it back again. Dolly Parton was talking about reproducing it. She was a secret producer in the first one. The movie, I think, in particular. So they're talking about trying to bring it back with Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think. So
that would be, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, as long as Spike's still Spike.
Bring back Seth Green. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I haven't gotten that far, so I don't know if he dies. Don't ruin it for me.
Seth Green's character is a pivotal character. Absolutely. I feel like he is a pivotal character.
I don't know. I just like Seth Green.
Yeah, it's good.
Like I enjoy his acting.
It's fucking funny.
That's shit though. I mean, so all right, that's. I don't know. I feel like a good piece of cabin, campground horror movies. You know, I mean, you have movies from the 70s that were, they were in cabins just for the sake of being in a fucking cabin, but the cabin wasn't a character. It wasn't a destination really.
Yeah.
It was just like. As much as sleeping in a tent, rolling it up, and moving on.
With Cabin in the Woods, I feel like that cabin was 100% the character.
Mm-hmm.
That was...
It was definitely a character.
Nailed it.
And that alone with the name, it was straight bang on.
You even kind of get a hint when you look at the cover, the Rubik's Cube cabin.
Yeah.
So
I think that's like one of the things. Like it was I felt like it was just marketed as a horror, and it just was not a horror for me.
Kind of dropped, yeah.
And if you guys have made it this far, yes, I know there is Wes Craven and Sean Cunningham stories with Friday the 13th and all this stuff. Like, this isn't IMDb. Go look this shit up yourself, or we'll talk about it in another episode.
Yeah.
Like, this is our connective tissue. Like, what we're just trying to...
We want you to go out there and discover shit, dude.
Hopefully we talk about a movie
something, yeah,
that you haven't seen or need to fucking see.
Absolutely. We're just starting out light for you guys. That's
yeah. You know what? Like, don't be a fucking Bridget and watch a goddamn... Like, don't watch these movies. Go watch them.
Don't ruin shit, Bridget.
Yeah. Fucking bitch. Fucking bitch. All right. That is it. I'm Curtis.
I'm
And
Steven. It's too hot
yeah.
here.
It fucking is. I need to open up a window.